All right. Thanks for joining me this morning. What I'm hoping to do is a general walkthrough of some OpenRefine operations on SNAC specific data, in particular, the NABS data set uh, of tribal information for CPF records that would be imported into SNAC. So I have the setup kind of like the cooking show where they show you how to do the prep work and then they can pull the completed dish from out from under the counter. So we do have a complete set to refer to, but in general, we'll just be walking through the working on this data and the kind of steps you would take to get it into an uploadable form for SNAC Dev with the OpenRefine plugin. So going back over to our raw data tab, in this case, we have a fair number of columns. Just kind of scanning across those so you can see what we have, and each top row here has what needs to happen for this to be ready to upload into OpenRefine. And so this video isn't intended for people who have completed a basics tutorial in OpenRefine, where you would have covered questions about faceting and other basic operations, facet, cluster, clearing, leading, and trailing white space, and other things that are built into the program. And so we'll be using some of those today, but we'll also be using some grel commands, that being the general refine language for editing language. Not sure if I have that acronym completely right, but I think one place to start is the biographical historical note column. And this is a good place to start because it's a much more free text field than a lot of our structured data columns. So there's going to be a lot to work on. So we're going to start here, and each column has a drop down menu. And just as a matter of good practice, I like to start with making sure my white space is in order, because as I like to say, the good news and the bad news is that the computer will do exactly what you tell it to. So if there's a stray space, it will differentiate that information from something that is intellectually the same. So, and you could see the little talkback came back with 180 cells where there was action to be taken. So the first task here introduces a grel command that will become second nature, because it's one of the most useful. So you go to edit cells in the drop down, and instead of selecting a transformation from the menu, you select transform, and you have a setup here. It's a pretty busy little panel with a lot going on. So these columns will become your before and after, so you can preview what's happening to your data. And then if you find a command useful and want to repeat it, this history tab is where it will be stored. And you can see this also has the history so far of I think even other projects for grel operations we've used. So the first one we're going to do to resolve some of the HTML tags that we want to remove is value.replace. And the format here is that you have the thing you want replaced in quotation marks, followed by a comma, followed by the thing you want to replace it with in quotation marks. And the really useful trick here is that you can delete something by replacing it with nothing. So we'll see that in action here. So first thing I want to go through and remove is the opening paragraph tag. So in my first set of quotation marks, I put that tag, and because I just want to delete it, I put nothing in the other half. And you can see in your preview already that this is gone. And so we can scroll down and preview some more and see that that's actually gone. And I will be reusing this several times. So I'm going to copy it, but I could also, once we're done, recall it from the history tab. So if I click OK, that automatically removes 309 instances of that HTML tag. So it's useful with a data set of under 1,000 rows, but just that much more useful when you have thousands and thousands of rows of data that you can't just eyeball to fix. So again, going to back to the idea that the computer will do whatever you tell it to do. Every so often it happens to me, and it might happen during this demonstration where I replace something with the wrong thing, or I wish I had included a space or punctuation. And so again, if that should happen, you can always step back in this undo redo tab up on the upper left, and so if we step back, you see it thinks about it for a second, and then it puts our tag right back. But we can say, no, really, I want to keep that, and then step forward again. The important thing to know here is that this only works linearly, so I can't have a set of, say, 78 commands and say I just want to say never mind on number 57. So it only works stepping straight forward and back. And then in this version of OpenRefine, Control Z also works to undo your last edit. So we get some a little more practice with this one, going back into transform and seeing what other tags we can remove. And so this is in my history to just click reuse. And so say the next thing I want to get rid of is the closing paragraph tag, and so now that's in our edit history, and 309 of them are gone in a click. So might not do all of these because we do have the finished data set, and this finished, or at least finished so far, data set is in the SNAC dev side to look at. So that's a good demonstration of the value replace command, and that one is one of the ones I use the most in all OpenRefine work. I currently have 3 OpenRefine projects open on my work computer, so it's really useful for transforming data between systems. So that shows us a value replace, and in the finished version, these are all taken out because it's just lather, rinse, repeat, substituting in the whatever item you'd like to remove. So, and you can see also that as you go, it keeps an edit history. And the great thing about this is that if you have multiple data sets where the same issues keep coming up, you can extract your edit history as JSON and run it as a script in OpenRefine, so that you don't have to do all of this every time. So if you're moving a lot of data through, there are ways to automate that. And the way you do that is you would apply what we just saw in the extract option into this panel to apply operation history. So there's a lot of potential there to at least automate some of the editing by hand, even above and beyond what OpenRefine will do in a given column. So the next thing we want to look at is our variant names columns. And so what's going on here is, I believe, need to, okay, yeah. So we have variant name columns, but we also have some alternate names in parentheses in our data set. And again, it's handy since this translates into over 2,000 rows in the file. We don't have to go through and eyeball all of them. So what we can do, and the main point of this for now is to demonstrate another feature. So it's a pretty common occurrence that you'll have data with some kind of pattern where you'd like to break it into two columns. So in this case, it was the parentheses or the alternate name in parentheses. And just to point out another feature, because OpenRefine just changed it on me. If you're running short on memory, or if you have a large data set that could tax the memory on your computer, you have the option, or just for the sake of ease of viewing, you also have the option of showing how many rows or records per page you want to display, so that it's not overwhelming either for the human reader or the computer memory. And so, just as an aside, records happen where OpenRefine can see some sort of grouping. So sometimes, depending on how well organized the data is to suit OpenRefine, it'll make some choices that may or may not be completely useful. But you can see it does offer some groupings, mostly on the SNAC plugin fields. So that's a way, and we'll probably see as we go, that's a way to kind of zoom in and zoom out on your data too, to be able to directly edit rows, but also see what's going on in context. So all of that lengthy preamble to our next feature is that we want to split off variant names that are in parentheses in the name entry column. And here also, there are cases where I'll let's see, hard to put it, but there are cases where it's worth it in terms of efficiency to create a minor issue to solve a major issue. So we'll see that in action here, in that the way we're going to split off these variant names on the end of the entry is to go to edit column, split into several columns, and we have some distinguishing characteristic we can use here to split things consistently. So it shows how useful it is to be consistent in your data entry, just so that if you have to go back and do a mass edit, it's you're going to be able to run generalized steps and commands that will take care of all of those. So we're going to split by the left parentheses, and also stipulate that we're going to split into two columns at most, because again, the computer will do whatever you tell it to, and I've accidentally wound up with 50 columns accidentally on doing a split by a certain character. So in this case, we're going to limit it to two. And so the minor issue that I've created, because, and it's really minor because this column or this row isn't actually in the data set, is that I split this column that just happens to have parentheses, but with name entry 1 and name entry 2, what I have now, if I take the drop down and use the text facet commands to see what's in this column, I click back over to the facet and filter, and I see that we have about 15 unique alternate names. So this is where we can go back to our value.replace command and go into name entry 2, transform, and then value.replace. And the first thing we're going to do is remove the AKAs. So since those were done consistently, just AKA and not A.K.A, we have fewer steps to resolve. So value.replace, and then the first thing before the comma is the thing you want to replace. In many cases, remove. And so we're going to replace that with nothing. So again, that top informational row is going to get odder and odder as we go, but the effect is also fixing something in our actual data. So we're going to run that value replace command and see that the AKA is moved, and so now we have a stray extra closing parenthesis to remove. So lots of practice with value replace, and I can go into my history and pull up the previous command, and that takes care of the closing parentheses. So then the one last thing we want to do here by way of cleanup is to go back in to common transforms and trim leading and trailing white space, so that we don't have invisible differentiators messing with what the computer is treating as the same data. So next thing we're going to do is rename the column, and that is under edit column in the drop down, and just rename. So we're going to call it variant to merge. And I find that either camel case or dashes is really handy in renaming your columns, just because you don't have to deal with white space when you're naming these columns later on in commands. So variant to merge, and so next thing we're going to do is we're going to move this column closer to to the other columns we have that deal with variant names so that we can look at these together. And so that's all the way over in your left column. And you can go to reorder, remove columns. So yeah, if for instance I got tired of seeing these blank columns, I could just drag them over to remove. So it's just, it's easier on the eyes when you're looking at data for a long time. And so that's how you remove columns. If I want to just reorder my columns, I can see I have variant to merge, and I have two columns that came with the data upload, which were variant name and variant name note. So I'm going to move this over to the right of the others, and so up to down corresponds to left to right in the column structure. And just to keep things tidy for keeping track of my column names, I can also rename this back to just name entry, since this is the main preferred form of the name. And so that way we're able to go through and see what we have in these variant name fields kind of side by side comparing. And so there's relatively little. We have 15 choices to incorporate with a larger set of 147. And so that is something that's reasonably done by hand, but OpenRefine can make it easier in that I can scroll down here to the blank option, and it's kind of a workaround to select all, because you do have the option of individually clicking on 147 of these to include them in your list, or I can select blank and then invert, and I've got my rows. That's only the rows in this column that aren't blank, that have stuff in them. So that's another reason to manage your white space with those other commands. And now I can see where, for instance, there may be a variant to merge, or it may be redundant. So we have one here that's redundant, but then we have another one here that's not. So that's something that gives you a manageable subset to look at and work with directly. And so next thing we'll look for is that sometimes we have information where it's a single word, but we want to present it more grammatically. And I'm going to close out of these facets for now and move over to our column that shows federal recognition status. And so we see that the task here says that it needs to be written as a complete sentence, and then moved over to the biographical history column. So the first thing we're going to do is turn this into a complete sentence with another GREL transformation. So checking my notes. So this is actually a fairly complex one. so what we're going to do is there are two ways we could do this. I'll show you the simple one first because it's really useful sometimes to just be able to append text, and that would be, this to type in this community has, and make sure I have a trailing space at the end, and append that to the column. So we create some oddities in our notes to self rows up top, but then we can see we have a way of using the word value to append text in quotes to whatever value exists in the column. So that's one way of proceeding. And so I could also proceed with value and replace to change the case here to regular sentence case with lowercase letter F and R. But the wording we went with here is a little bit different. And so first thing I'm going to do is when I delete this, you see my after column has no information in it. So I'm going to use the value replace and replace federal recognition with is a federally recognized tribe. And so and yes, typos happen, and so even if you know what you meant, the computer will hold out until it has something it can work with. So what I've done here is because I want to use this particular wording, is I've introduced a sentence fragment, because the next thing we're going to do is go back over to our name entry field and use another grel command that is particularly useful for this sort of data set. And so just confirming the name for myself as I go, I'll move back over to the federal recognition column and go back into grel and drop in this column, or this command, which is the cells column name value plus value. So it's not putting anything in the after column right now, because we don't literally have a column named column name, but let's see. And there's oops. There we go. And so we have a small issue that we've created to fix. So again, the column name needs to be exact, and you can also have issues with symmetry among your quotes, and I believe double quotes will work here too, because every once in a while you have something you need to quote that has the other kind of quote in it. But the one other step here, because we can see our after column populated, but we need some white space. So what we can do is plus white space. And so now we have a complete sentence. And similarly, if we wanted to append the in front of this, we could use once this is the value of our column, we could append it similarly with the in quotes plus value. So now we have a complete sentence there. And let's see. Okay, and so we can repeat that step again on the column labeled NA, because what we need to do here is again turn into a complete sentence data that we just have in the form of names. So I'm going to do the same thing again and transform and use the suggested verbiage up here. So the communities that are part of this nation include, and then make sure I include a trailing space plus value. And so the nice thing here in our after columns, and our informational rows are just going to get sillier and sillier, but as we go, we can see we again have complete sentences happening with these constituent communities. And if I want to include a period at the end of the sentence, similarly, I just use a plus and period. And so now we can see that we have a full sentence with punctuation. So as we scroll down, we can see how that worked, and that additionally OpenRefine recognized where we had blank cells and didn't just drop the fragment where there was no value to connect it with. So we're going to change the name of this column just for clarity, and we're going to call this constituents. And so we're also going to call this other not applicable column, just because forward slashes in interacting with regular expressions and other sort of automated commands, those can be something that takes extra effort to parse out. So we're going to rename this to federal recognition. And so we have in our to-do list that we want this to be added to our biographical historical column. And then we also have over in constituents that this needs to be moved into the biographical historical column. So this is another occasion to rearrange our columns for ease of use and ease of tracking what's going on. So there's our biographical historical column, and we can move constituents to the right here, and then we can move federal recognition below that, so that all of these things that need to go together are in fact consecutive. And then this sets up another OpenRefine superpower in that we want to add constituents and federal recognition to the biographical historical note. And so one way we can do that is to join columns And you can see there you have check boxes. So I don't think they even need to necessarily be consecutive, but it makes it easier to see what you're merging. So we have our biog hist column with constituents and federal recognition. And so it looks fortunately, as an aside, like our sentences for the existing biographical historical note end in a period. So I'm going to live dangerously and assume that they all do for now. So as a separator between each column, I'm just going to use a blank space and write result in a new column, which I'll temporarily call biog hist plus. And so you have the option of keeping or discarding your joined columns at this point. And so it's going to keep all of the information we needed. So I'm going to opt to delete those. And so now we have biog hist plus and we have our two silly rows, and then we can see that as we go, where we've been able to add federal recognition, that's been appended to the previous biographical historical note. And I'm looking for a good one with constituent groups. And so there we are. I was going to do a Control F for communities if I couldn't find it directly, but you can see here that now we have our prior biohistorical note, the constituent information, and federal recognition. So we can join those columns. And again, since we used space as a separator, we probably have some consecutive white space to mop up. So that's another huge time saver. And so I'm looking through my to-do list and seeing what else I want to make sure we look at. So those are the major steps that transformed the data in this tab, the formerly raw data, over to this is the completed data where this has been edited with those steps and then also uploaded to the SNAC dev platform. So upon uploading, you receive a SNAC ID and a link. This is a placeholder for now, these consecutive nines, but when these go into actual SNAC, they'll have real identifiers there. So a couple things to point out here for more SNAC specific edits are that for one, the information that was given to us with this data set was latitude and longitude. It turns out the data field in the SNAC schema that we'll look at momentarily is just a place column. So what I did here was first I joined my columns. So I have just a latitude longitude column, and then I used the GeoCodio online utility, which is free unless you're moving just very large amounts of data. And reverse geocoded these latitudes and longitudes to an identifiable place name. And so that took some work outside of OpenRefine in Excel, but then I was able to re-import that with a place column, so that these now have a place as well, and this would be a good column to do a value and replace, and just to wherever there's a comma to replace it with a comma plus a space. So to look at the plugin itself, and again, this has already been uploaded, but let's see. So if I have my SNAC plugin installed, and so having to move my zoom window a bit. My options are to validate, so that's just to not to attempt to add anything to SNAC or SNAC dev, but just to see if there are issues. And so if I validate, it confirms with me that I'm validating with the SNAC dev environment, and so that will spin along and tell me places where, and it moves pretty quickly on the campus network here. So it'll tell me places where it needs data in order to proceed with the upload, and a lot of those are the exist state, and then there are other columns you can see, and it's handy. I actually have the errors from the last validation I did. So it's either the exist date, or we have one there where apparently we have our corporate body, person, or family type more than once. So sometimes there's small bug fixes. And so since that process is done, we can see where it appended a validation message. So we have a new column. And so with the magic of OpenRefine, you can divide and conquer these and facet and say, what kind of issues are going on with my data, and see that I have, if I sort by count, I have 230 instances of this particular issue to troubleshoot. And so I can select this facet and only work with the records where this is an issue. So in this case, it's the fact that the exist state is blank. So OpenRefine can also make it a lot easier to troubleshoot issues in your data. And so just to look at the SNAC schema, because this will be your first step once you have the plugin installed, to go in and match your columns to the ones that SNAC recognizes as particular kinds of structured data. So your pool of options is over here, and you can see there are a lot of gaps because I've moved a lot of these over. And so, for instance, variant name entry maps to variant name, and so on. And there are some others that we haven't used in this data set, but that we could. And there are others that, for instance, something I did locally that I'll show you momentarily. I don't have to delete that column. I can just not map it, and so the fact that it's irrelevant to the upload process lets it coexist there. So in any case, you can see the options you have to work with, and that's what's going to get your data from your OpenRefine columns to the right place within the SNAC system. And again, you have tabs up here that will show you some issues and a preview. So just so you can see what's mapping to what. You can see that my CPF type is going to map correctly as a corporate body. My exist date is there, but it's also going to give me validation errors, like the fact that this entry doesn't yet have an exist date. So OpenRefine just has so many ways of presenting and representing information so that it's easier to troubleshoot. So if I want to go back to my original setup here, we have our columns, and then the one other thing I did with this data that is outside the scope of OpenRefine, but useful in this case, was to make a bash shell command to extract the titles of the web pages that we're using for our source material, so that for the purposes of citation, I didn't have to go and visit every site. And some sites just seem to decline that automated inquiry, and then others we've found have 404 or not found, or 403 forbidden messages, or other privacy warnings from the browser. So there's some cleanup to be done there now that we've done what we can automate, but it's a much smaller set where we'll have some editorial decisions as to how we want to replace links that no longer exist, or other similar issues, and then there will be other editorial decisions, like some mentions of tribal names have diacritics and others don't. That would be something where we would want to decide how consistent we want to be, and whether we want to use the Wayback Machine to try to recover some of the sites that have disappeared. So some other things to think about too are whether we want in our citations, whether we want to use actual website titles or devised titles, because sometimes the HTML title is title, where it hasn't been customized yet to give any differentiating information. So we have about 10 minutes left, and I do want to pivot to questions. And I see Veronica, your hand's up.
Yeah, I really like that validate SNAC mode. That is so cool. Um, I wish A Space would do something, or Archive Space would do something like this, because you just kind of have to sift through it and figure out what you did wrong there, and you spend a lot of time doing that. But um, for purposes of, yeah, just your tips or tricks for
Mm-hmm.
this, like this is our first iteration of this import, and I know we need to go back and do languages, but we have to go in and map all the codes, the ISO codes to those. And so in terms of how you would document that and say, okay, here's this first import, this is what we did. Is there any tips or tricks that you would use just to kind of document that? And then you kind of say, here's the next things we're going to probably do, just so you can remember what exactly happened on this import and what else needs to happen later.
Sure. And so the great thing is with OpenRefine, and this, it helps me prepare for this demonstration, is that it keeps your entire edit history, so that it's possible to go back and see what we did, what steps we took, and then also we can turn that into a script if we want. And I think for deciding next steps, I think I know for the editing process, going back to the to the file we were directly working on, it really did help to have to-dos at the top of each column, and to just be able to say what does done look like for this particular column, and then be able to move on to something else. So that I found really helpful. Yeah, I don't know if that's a complete answer, but those are the two things that jump out at me as things that have worked. Other questions? Oh, and we have some in the chat. Let's see. Oh yeah, and so it was Veronica. So yeah, for documenting a first import, the other thing I tend to do, and I'll show my existing project, is that this one has a lot of iterations. So um, what I do is I change the title as I go, and so this would, for instance, would no longer be raw data, but say post demonstration. And so that's a way to differentiate uh, different versions and iterations of what's going on. That's how I've kept track of which which file I want to be working on.
I actually have a question next to the
Sure.
name at the top where it
Yeah,
says permalink. How does that work if that is saved on your device? If you were to send that permalink to somebody, would they be able to open this data set?
that's that's interesting. It looks like it does live on your PC. I think it would just be for convenience within your own,
Okay.
yeah, within your own system, because for instance, if I accidentally close my close my window, I I just type 127, the first few numbers of the IP address, and that will give me back the home screen to OpenRefine. But I think the permalink could be a way to get yourself back faster to where you were without the additional steps of hunting through the list for the project.
Yeah, so you could like in some other documentation, like for workflow tracking or whatever, you could keep those just for easier access, but it's only personal, it's only on your personal device. I was just thinking about it in terms of um like with what Veronica's doing, having kind of like a working group doing this, if that was something that was possible, but I was confused because I know that it's hosted on your own
Oh
device.
yeah, yeah. Since it's
So you would
I
need to
just
download it and share it separately if you're working together.
oh yeah, and
Okay.
I'll show that. So yeah, just copying and pasting this confirms that it's all in this home instance. But to share a project, there are a couple of ways to do this in your export menu, where you have a whole bunch of different file formats. If you're turning a data set into a comma separated value CSV file to import into another system like ASpace, that that's where you could save as one, and also the option of tab separated value, a couple flavors of Excel, and then the other really useful one for when you're just continuing to work in OpenRefine is that you can export the actual OpenRefine project
Hmm.
and send that to people, or put it in a Dropbox or Google Drive to so that, and you can see it just exported this as a openrefine.tar.gz. So that's also a great way to back up your work, because again, this is all it all happens locally. Uh, it depends on the well-being of your hard drive unless you're backing it up. So this is a way to export and back it up to whatever uh, secondary source you want for the safety of the data.
That history will still be on there. So if you put it, if somebody else takes that data set that you've just uploaded to like a shared drive and they do some changes there and it's a different user, do those all get, does that history still remain on the undo redo function?
Yeah, and yeah, that's actually how I prepared the steps for this demonstration was being able to go in and upload the uh, a version I set aside and go back through my steps, which were a little bit messier. So this way I could do a tidy version of it. So the project export should bring with it the edit history.
Great. And so multiple edit histories, like if you're in a working group with people and they have to do certain tasks and like kind of what we've assigned up here with different folks doing different things and then they can say, I've uploaded my part. And yeah, I don't know if that's that, if you've done this before, if you have any workflow suggestions for this too.
Yeah, and uh, generally I haven't tried anything like that. I know like if you have parallel edits, those can't be those can't be merged. But if you have people just working uh, successively, consecutively
Mhm.
on a file, that should work. And unfortunately, it's not as fancy as Microsoft Office or the Google apps in being able to assign tasks or annotate or anything. But it does maintain the history.
Okay. Okay. So there's you can make workflows out of that. Just say somebody needs to do this in an order, before the other person does and keep that order straight. So, okay. That's great.
Yeah, and the other option might be just a README text file to
Mhm.
to kind of log what's happened, so that it's a little more human readable than this is pretty readable, and then you also have the JSON history and annotations, but yeah, there are ways to just include some accompanying README to make sure that it's intelligible.
Mhm. Great. And
Other
this,
question? Pardon?
oh, and this is the older version of OpenRefine that you had to use for the plugin, or is this the new one?
Oh, that's a great question. This is the current version of OpenRefine. We did some troubleshooting late last week on getting the plugin to work with the current OpenRefine. So it basically what we have now is the data point that there could be issues that that were resolved temporarily by using an older OpenRefine, but we've also confirmed at this point that we can get it to work as as intended and following the setup steps to use the latest OpenRefine and see more data fields in the from the latest plugin.
Oh, great. Okay,
Yeah.
great. That's wonderful. Because I was going to say that's going to be a fun little trick that everybody's going to have to learn how to do if we're using previous versions and all
Oh
of that.
yeah. Yeah. So it looks like we don't have to do the archaeological dig of of program versions.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Marcella. This is so wonderful, and that's
Cool.
where I may have 10 questions as we try to practice and do some of this stuff, but especially that biog hist, all those merges that you have to do for text, but that makes it so much faster. for sure.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah, and yeah, happy to share these because the just that toolkit of commands plus the user interface in OpenRefine is such a time saver.
mhm.
So if there, let's see, oh, another another message in the chat. Oh, excellent. And Ia left a document linked in the chat for people attending today to refer back to. And yeah, that's that's our hour. So again, thanks and yeah, please feel free to contact me with questions and we can definitely do another one of these as we go along.
So awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a good day, everyone.
You too. Bye, everybody.
Bye.